In this instalment of Let's Talk Toddlers, we're going to be talking about setting boundaries, which is a core part of being a parent, but it is not always easy to do. There can be guilt, there can be comparing to others, and there can be an uncertainty if you're doing the right thing or not. We're all fumbling our way through, we're all doing it, so we're going to share our experiences about boundary setting.
As a general rule, everyone in the house will be asleep by 7:30, and
oh my god, you guys are awesome.
It's a military operation.
Amazing.
Having an evening is one of my boundaries, and I can't sit up there all night. So I will say to him, "Tell me when you want me to go," and he can't resist it because he wants the power, and he'll just sort of lie there, and then he'll just go, "Go."
I think for lots of parents and adults, we think that our child's happiness is our responsibility.
Yes, yeah.
When actually happiness is just an emotion.
I'm Emma, mum of 3, play researcher and founder of Playful Den. And I'm here with dad of 5, Ben, from The Diary of a Dad.
Hi Emma, great to be here.
And child psychologist Dr. Marta, also a mum.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's talk toddlers. Perhaps we could start, Marta, with maybe like some of the boundaries that you have set in your home. Perhaps we can each sort of share the ones that are non-negotiable and firm in our households.
Yeah, I mean, for me, boundaries are about safety. So they're not mean. They're not supposed to be harsh. They're also not masquerading as a punishment. Okay, they're not a threat of something. They're meant to safeguard your child, and they're meant to also protect you. And when I say protect you, it might be protecting your physical space, but it might also be protecting your time, your energy, all that kind of stuff. Some boundaries, like my daughter is very tactile and I love giving her cuddles and her having on me, but I do get touched out sometimes. And when she was a baby, it was different because she really needed it. But now she's like growing into becoming a 4-year-old. Sometimes I have to say to her, like my boundary will be something that sounds like, I want to be close to you, but I don't want you on my lap. So come and sit next to me and hold my hand. So that's a boundary.
Could you explain what touched out means, just in case anyone doesn't know what that is?
It just means like my body's been touched and felt by another so much that I actually feel, well, for me, it feels like anxiety, but it feels like, get off me, don't touch me. And it can come across as like snappy irritability, right? And it's when you've given a lot of yourself, like, physically to another. And with little ones, they need that physical presence. So of course, most of us will give it to them, but it's really important to also kind of set a boundary for you. And it also teaches them about body boundaries. Another boundary for us will be about when we go to bedtime. There's a time boundary. Like, this is the time that you now go to sleep. And sometimes she doesn't like it because she wants to play. And, especially if she's like building or creating something with her toys or like Duplo bricks, she'll be like, no, because I'm not finished. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to place a pause. So we call it pausing rather than ending. And we tell her we won't move it, we won't touch it, we won't pull it down. You can have it in the morning the way that it is, and that tends to help her.
Bedtime is a big one for me. I am strict on bedtime. And partly that's because the kids are just a nightmare if they don't sleep.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And because I have to have an evening. Like me and my husband have always really held a strong boundary on this, that if we don't get to speak to each other in the evening, we don't speak.
No, I agree.
So when they're certainly under a certain age, I mean, the eldest is 12 now and middle one is 9, so they're obviously up later. But for these like early ages, sort of up until 5, 6, 7 o'clock, see you later. And I start doing that bedtime routine from about 6:30 because I have to decompress. I absolutely have to have that time in the evening. So that one for me is non-negotiable.
I'm glad we're all on the same page with bedtimes. People often ask us how we function with 5 children and things like that. And, we're fortunate that with them all being under the age of 9, there's no late bedtimes in our house. We just, we start at a prescribed time and we work it through and we make sure that as a general rule, everyone in the house will be asleep by 7:30. And
oh my God, you guys are awesome.
It's a military operation.
Amazing.
But it just works for us. And for the same reason that Emma mentioned, because I know that on the occasions where anything slips, or, if we've got a child that's ill, or, whatever might cause that routine to just fall out of sync, it does impact then the only time in the day that either we can just sit down and have a conversation, or even sometimes just do nothing. Yeah. And I think sometimes as parents, we definitely need that. I think another one, the other thing that we also do is we kind of keep that routine going, even when we go on holiday and things like that, because and that often surprises people, because they're like, oh, do you not just like relax? And we're like, no, we kind of need to keep to the whatever time zone we're in. We want to sort of mirror the same thing that we do at home, just because, again, when you're abroad, you want to be able to enjoy that time.
But you do have 5 kids as well.
But we do, yes. So that is a fact.
So when we want to set a boundary with a toddler, that sometimes can be a bit of a challenge to explain what that is. Ben, do you have an example of where you have done that? So you've had to communicate the boundary to the toddler, establish the boundary with them directly, and like how do you go about it? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I'm very open and honest, and will say that I think we basically created a rod for our own back when it came to gifting, purely because, and I suppose there was that element when your children are living a very different life to maybe the life that you were raised. I didn't want for anything as a child, but I certainly knew that, my parents couldn't afford absolutely everything. And we got into, I think, a bit of a trap. Particularly we noticed when we would travel that the kids associated being on holiday with, going to a gift shop or even going on days out. So it's like, we're always going to go to the gift shop. But if you're on holiday and you have to go past the gift shop in the hotel resort every single day, they start to then think, well, every time we go past it, we're gonna get something. And we've had to do a lot of work on that particular topic, because
one is hard.
It's not necessarily about the value of it. It's not necessarily just the expense of that happening. It's just the frequency and just the expectation.
Yeah. I think that time when kids have absolutely no concept of like money, and that the fact that, in a shop you have to pay for stuff, like so abstract. Generally just try not to go there. That's my boundary.
I think the big challenge came in with knowing that we had to set the boundary, but not quite knowing how to do it. So initially, it was avoiding places. It was, okay, well, we just won't go to the local shopping centre. Then we started having the conversation with the children beforehand. So it was, we're going to go to this particular shopping centre, but today we're not going to get any toys.
That's lovely.
Or when we were on holiday, we'd say, let's maybe earlier in the holiday, we'd go into the gift shop, have a look at what you like, maybe think and, make a list in your head, or, make a note of something that you would like. And then maybe towards the end of the holiday, we'll then go and get it. And it takes a bit of time because, children have got to be able to process that whole step. It almost felt a little bit cruel at times to take them into the shop knowing that they weren't going to get anything. Yeah. So I would say that, I've said it before, we're 5 children deep, but we are still learning. Yeah. And I think just by trying these different things, I think now it's the most comfortable that I've felt as a parent when it comes to this topic of giving and gifting.
I think one of the boundaries, or just sort of conversations that we have to have with our kids, is when we are moving from one place to the other. And this can be really hard because we're not on the same flow and we're not always on the same schedule. In fact, they are, as we've talked about many times, they are in the present. So if they are in the playground, in flow, they are deep in that play. And then we're looking at our watch. We've got to get dinner bath time, bed. We got to remove them from that bubble of play that they're in. Oh God, I'm getting a little bit of PTSD talking about it actually. And you got to get them out and you're thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to extract them? How do you guys go about that, Marta? How do you approach that?
How do I approach it? So I think one of two ways, and it depends on the day, depends on the situation. So a transition is always hard for a toddler, like always, because they're in the moment. So that like you're pulling them out of something. So if it's the playground, and the playground is one of these moments for my daughter because she loves it, I will tell her we're going to go soon. So I tell her we're going to go soon. It's not a warning. It's a like preparation, if you like. I'm prepping her. We're going to go soon. So you can go on one more thing. Okay, so that would be one way. So she does the swing, for example. And then when she's like, I'm done, I'm like, right, we're going home. There is no, we're going home. I told you. No, she protests sometimes. Sometimes she doesn't. She's okay because it's a regular kind of thing that we've created. Sometimes she does protest. That's okay. I will pick her up. She's still at the age where I don't care. She's quite big, but I will pick her up or I'll hold her hand and I'll say, oh, you really want to be at the park. It's so hard to leave. Now it's time to go and I'm going to help you. So what I'm doing in that moment is acknowledging what she wants, because our kids are allowed to want stuff, whether it's gifts or playing or, not going to bed. They're allowed to want it. And we're allowed to hold our like sturdy leadership of being like in parental authority and say, you don't understand, because they don't understand time. So you don't understand that there's something else we have to do, but I empathize with the fact you want to be here. So I get it. And we're leaving. I say it in that kind of vocal tone where I'm being gentle and empathic, but I'm being quite firm. Yeah. There's no, oh, I'm really sorry. I'm not sorry. I will say, I know you really want to be at the park. You love it here. We're going to come back another day. Now it's time to go. Like that is how it sounds. And I'll take her. And she protests. And if she protests, again, it's about the confidence of being like, other people can judge me, but I know that I'm getting it right. And she's protesting because she wants something else from what I'm giving her. She's allowed to want it. I'm still allowed to like hold my boundary. I would leave the park if you asked me like that. Would you? Yeah, I was like, okay, I'll leave the park. She said to leave. I mean, the other ways that you can set a timer, but the timer works better like in a house situation, I think, than outdoors.
The concept of time is a little bit...
They don't understand time.
There is no.
But you can have a timer, and if it beeps, then you go, right, it's beeped. And then again, that's your boundary. But not the warning, but the kind of prep really helps toddlers because it gets them out of the moment.
Yeah. They know it's coming.
They know it's coming.
How do you get around that one, Ben?
Similar, I think, you've got to kind of try and allow the child to feel as though they are in control of some element of this. So, when it does come to leaving a particular place, I think, again, the warning, the countdown towards that, and then just, I guess, following through, because I suppose looking back at times where I've maybe got that a bit wrong in the past is that you set the boundary, the child kicks off, and then to just try and keep the peace, you give in. And again, that doesn't really solve anything, because I guess that then becomes a learned behavior in them that they think, well, all right, next time when you tell me that there's a bit of a countdown, I'm just not gonna listen to it. We love a timer in the house for various. We've actually even bought the kids their own little stopwatch things that has got an alarm, and if we need to for a particular task, it's there. They've got really clever, though, the older ones, because now they're telling us they set timers for homework. And when it beeps, they're like, they don't want to do it. So, but even for like our youngest, he's got quite used to just hearing it, he doesn't obviously understand the concept of the time, but he knows that there will be sort of a beeping noise that will go off when we're saying, we're going to go upstairs for bedtime or bath time. So yeah, it's again a work in progress. It's something that we've kind of introduced fairly recently because we just felt like there was a real need to do that. But when you get it right, you do feel quite accomplished.
Yeah. I also want to fly the flag for the sort of playful side of boundary setting, because I think sometimes when we talk about rules and boundaries and even discipline, it can feel very kind of black black and white and sort of like all very firm, but you can also deliver these boundaries, I think, with some lightness and even, dare I say it, with some fun. Sort of turning, you mentioned there, like making them feel like they're in control. That is something that I find really works with Scout, my youngest. So when he's going to bed, he often will want me to stay with him. And I obviously want him to feel safe and secure. But as I said, having an evening is one of my boundaries, and I can't sit up there all night. I can't do that anymore. So I will say to him, I'll sort of go really close to his face and I'll be like, tell me when you want me to go. And he can't resist it because he wants the power, and he'll just sort of lie there and then he'll just go, go.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So there are, like, you know, you just find those little ways of sort of like those little playful ways of enforcing your boundary. So definitely a lot of the, like, same with you, the sort of like soft but firm, but also there are times when I can get this sort of lightness in as well.
So I guess and another side of this conversation, again, just thinking of parents that might be listening to this conversation and thinking that they feel really guilty.
Yeah.
When you have to, because again, we don't want to paint this picture, I suppose, that, you know, this is all easy and that, you know, I think there is a huge amount of guilt that comes with setting boundaries. I don't know, again, Marta, if there's any, you know, psychological things that we can be thinking about as parents, you know, just to get over that hurdle of guilt, because the reality is we do need the boundaries.
I think there is so much guilt around saying no to kids.
I think there's so much guilt. Yeah, I think there is. And I think there's a sense of boundaries being mean.
Yes.
You know, and I don't even know how to frame it diplomatically, but I think there are certain routes or schools of parenting that are about like being super kind to your child, and I'm into like super kind and empathy and all of that, but I'm not into that without a boundary. And I think for some parents what they misunderstand is that if you are very empathic and you validate your child and you listen to them, then you also just let them kind of rule your household. That doesn't make for like confident, happy kids, because they like boundaries. Boundaries keep kids feeling secure and grounded, even when they protest. Okay? And you need to know that actually the boundary says to a child, okay, my parent can keep me safe. You know, my parent is the authority. We do need to be the authority. It doesn't mean we have to be harsh. There's a difference between being like, you do as I say, to, look, we have to go to bed now. And this is important for your health, for your well-being. A toddler doesn't understand all those things, but we can still communicate that in a different way from just do as I say because I'm bigger and taller than you, if that makes sense.
I think there's some like bit of personal, I don't know, work or whatever we want to call it, that can help with this as well, because this is definitely, like, I feel quite different now, 3 kids later, in that I am very comfortable with our children being disappointed. Like, I am very comfortable with that, and I think that is quite uncomfortable for some parents. But I am really comfortable with them being disappointed. It's part of life.
I'm very comfortable with it.
You know, they're safe, they're healthy, they're happy, they've got a lot of good stuff going on. Like, I'm really okay with, you know, if they open presents on Christmas Day and they don't actually get what they want, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with if they're disappointed that they can't have things, or if I have to say no. I think there is something about, I don't know, just if you know, a little bit of self-reflection or questioning there on like, what, you know, is that sometimes uncomfortable for you? That really helped me.
I think for lots of parents and adults, we think that our child's happiness is our responsibility. When actually happiness is just an emotion, just like every other emotion. It's not our job to make our child happy. It is our job to support them in developing coping strategies and actually going through a disappointment and feeling safe with you by their side. Not fixing it, just acknowledging that they're disappointed, whether it's like leaving the park or not getting a toy, kind of saying, I know you really want that toy. I can't buy it for you. I'm sorry. Wah! I know that's really hard. Let's go. You know, that's our job, because we all go through disappointment in life. And, you know, if we think about entitled children Entitled children are also children who don't go through disappointment. So then their view of the world is, if I want something, I get it. And that's not how the world works. So we also need to embrace those uncomfortable moments. And again, I really think role play is great. Okay, role play is your friend. If you as a parent find this conversation difficult, or you resonate with this idea of disappointment being really hard, use role play, like, you know, whether it's with teddies or dollies or like, you know, Duplo sets, use it where a teddy gets disappointed by what they get. Gift them something, you know, a little brick that's a gift, and then get them to be just, oh, it's not the color I wanted. And then role play. What is that like? How does it feel for your child to be in control of saying, that's what you get? Because they learn it that way. So we need to just acknowledge disappointment as hard, and it's just an emotion that we learn with lots of practice and repetition to kind of live with rather than get rid of.
Yeah. A huge thank you to today's guests and, of course, all our listeners. This is Let's Talk Toddlers, created by Lego Duplo.